Okay, so just FYI, why I do these videos in whatever state that I'm in, and I could be disheveled and tired or just woke up or in the process of thinking about something. It's because you got to see the process. You got to see the process is not something that is linear. It's not something that you just sit down one day, you read it, and then you get it. It is a process that not only do you have to learn the information that you're reading and understand the biases, but then you have to get through past your own programming, your own assumptions, your own ways of looking at the world. And I'll tell you, that's a programming that is so embedded that you don't realize it actually is working against your evolution. That's why it's taken me such a long time to really get this all narrowed down to what I'm doing, because I had to learn everything that I thought was appropriate. And some of it is just basic stuff that you get from your science class in 8th grade. Okay, but it is a background that must be understood from a very basic level, so that way you can build on, or that way I could build on that information with harder concepts, with more complex thought processes that I normally would not entertain if it was like 10 or 15 years ago. Okay? And so then when I speak about this process that I'm doing, then I hear it, I'm typing, so I'm doing the kinetic energy, so I'm getting cell memory from it. And then I am typing it, and then I'm watching, I'm looking at it, I'm reading it. And so then everything gets involved, and I'm then employing like my whole body, mind, and spirit in this. So that way, when I do bring in information that it isn't really, I don't have the answer right away, I'll sleep on it. Like I did today, I took a nap because I was up since like early this morning, and I was up late last night and early this morning, and it was just like, geez, and so my body had to catch up. And so then when I was doing all these videos this afternoon, it was just like a flurry of activity. I did feel a few heart palpitations, okay, because of the frequencies. My dog was a little bit more active at the time. So then what happens when you have that kind of activity, your brain works. Like the kinetic energy of all the information that I've taken in the last 2 years and writing about it, because I've been working on this ever since my last book release. I released my second book, or third book, second book, which is the evolution of the Jelly Juice Protocol. And then I stopped that, and then I started immediately on my next book. And that has been a 2-year project. It's been fucking insane, because it's layer by layer by layer of understanding concepts, wading through the biases and propaganda, and releasing my own programming that actually will stop me from understanding something. You don't realize that you actually have antibodies and programming in your body that will stop you from understanding something, that will actually develop a block against you actually understanding something. That's what is so insidious about programming, and layers and layers and layers and layers of programming from your friends, your family, from academia, from the mainstream media, from all the different sources that you take in, just, consciously and subconsciously. It all is a programming, and it works in the foreground and it works in the background. And you don't even know it's working until you realize how difficult it has been to take on concepts and to understand something. Because let me tell you, learning the positive and negatives, and those took me a few years. Not the actual concept in of itself, but then using it as an example with proteins and cell replication. Okay? And so why I do this is that way I can hear. It's like listening to a professor. Okay? And listening to a professor talking about something. And so then when I listen back to my own information, not only do I teach myself, but I catch my mistakes. And that's why it's important that you write, you read, and you also speak into a camera video, so you can hear yourself and watch yourself and look at yourself if you want to get a very well-rounded way of learning information and discovering things that you would not ever discover before, because you never employed a different way of learning something. Okay, and so I have like all these pages, and I'm going back and looking at all these notes that I've done, and I'm now scaling shit down and scaling it down and condensing it and condensing it. And some stuff is not even going to be in the book, because there's no sense in regurgitating a textbook about mitosis and meiosis. I mean, that's not difficult. If I just say mitosis, someone who would get, I'll give a brief explanation, but I won't go into like gametes and then really difficult conceptual rabbit holes. Mitosis is just cell replication. Meiosis is sexual reproduction. Mitosis is telomere lengthening. Meiosis is needing to procreate with another entity to develop conception versus you reproducing, replicating clones. Okay, so mitosis is cloning your cells. So if you were missing an arm, you clone your cells to develop and regrow your arm. But meiosis is saying, okay, well, we're just going to take whatever programming that you have, and you might be missing an arm, but it's not like the baby that you develop from the time that you're missing your arm is going to have a missing arm. It's just, it'll have weaknesses and stuff because you're able to regrow your arm, but you can still move the genes forward, or you can still carry the human race forward or carry it on, by reproducing. Sexual reproduction. Okay, so everything is safe until it's not. Anything aggressively antibiotic must be FDA approved, eventually gets recalled, or the body develops an immunity or an ABX resistance against it. Okay, so getting things FDA approved isn't like wonderful, because eventually, if it's something really aggressive, it will be recalled because there will be an antibiotic resistance against it. There'll be antibodies developed against it, and then people will suffer from the body being attacked by the therapies that they used for many, many years. So I wouldn't necessarily say, yay, something got FDA approved, because even that is like, ooh, that's scary that you even have to approve it by the FDA. If it's something like food, great. But if something like a drug, I don't know, man, if I would want to really take anything that's FDA approved or not FDA approved as far as a drug. Because no matter what, the body is going to develop a resistance against it, and also it will work against the body over time. Okay? And so then if I'm going to be condensing everything down, yeah, I can go and look at every single laws of physics. I can go look at panspermia, and I can bring all that into there. I mean, there's so much in the physics, in chemistry, in biology, and in just, what else? Psychology, psychiatry. I'm telling you, I could bring in, there's probably 1 million books in me because of my knowledge, my vast knowledge of now how everything works, and it's easy to look stuff up and process the information. But I still have to come from a very narrow point of view, so that way I'm not throwing so much information at myself and confusing myself, but also at other people. And so then it's just taking whatever I've been writing the last 2 years, and again, now taking out the meatier parts so you get the point that I'm making, using certain aspects of physics and chemistry and biology to support my thesis, okay? So then I narrowed everything down to, of course, thermodynamics, the 3 laws of biology, the 3 laws of motion, Coulomb's law, which is the inverse square law, okay? And then you understand what self-antigen is. You are the self-antigen. You're supposed to develop antibodies to protect your organs, to protect your system. But you don't even have that anymore really within you that is predominant, because you've been under so much antibiotic gene therapy programming that do you even understand what self-antigen is? It's like antigen now could be anything that the system finds that isn't an enemy to you, because you have an allergic reaction to it because of antibodies were developed against it from all the therapies. And so then you have to develop another therapy to attack that, versus just releasing that crappy programming and coughing and blowing your nose and all that. No, the gene therapies have compounded the issue. All the immunotherapies, all the different remedies and therapies and whatever have actually compounded the problem of compound predisposed issues and co-infections and cancer disease and chronic illness and autoimmune disorders. Okay? And so then Then, okay, so then if I'm going to list out what are the main things that I'm going to be focusing as far as the viruses and how all this is going to, how you will then see what the medical holistic system has done. And then here is then the JJ world, a completely different model that doesn't incorporate taking antibiotics or probiotics for any kind of issue, doesn't incorporate trying to mess with the genome, doing the plus and minus, but you have to see first how the medical system uses DNA and uses the science to shortcut your way into this world for a very short amount of time until the programming wears down, until the outcome is the actual intention. What's the outcome? It's death. Well, why is that the intention? Well, because you don't want to feel pain, but you don't know. Let me read more of this, okay? And so your antibiotic and probiotic, something is either going to work against a protein promoting growth or it's going to encourage development of a proteins. The outcome is the intention. See, that's where you can't get too black and white when it comes to antibiotic and probiotic. Just because something's probiotic doesn't mean that it's right. I mean, it's better than not. You don't want anything really antibiotic, but when something is probiotic, what kind of growth are you developing? I mean, and it could be exponential growth, but that could also be just balancing out the exponential death. But then that might be too much for somebody. So then there's that. But what are you developing? What are you growing? Are you growing proteins that are going to work against the nutrients in the food supply? So let's say somebody that you know is taking vitamin C therapy for cancer. Okay, and you need vitamin C because it's a hormone. It's something that it's a vitamin. It's a hormone, something that you need. And so now you're breathing in that person's immune system, their antibodies against that vitamin C. You don't really have a strong immune system, so then you have an antibody against the vitamin C. Now it's going to attack anything that is like vitamin C that's in your intake of food. And so then you get an allergy. Eventually, if you're around that person long enough or your immune system cannot fight off that kind of rogue programming. And so then if you're, just because something's probiotic and it's encouraging growth, what kind of growth are you encouraging? Are you encouraging growth that's working against your life and against your food supply? Or is the growth actually prolonging your life? You really won't know until you watch your friends and family go through what they go through and then they die. Well, why did your friends and family die? Because they're taking on programming that actually is working against their longevity over a period of time. But then, of course, that is expected. But what if you can encourage growth that will prolong your life, lengthen your telomeres, and you never have to die from old age? Or just supernova out. Okay? But see, we're going to enter into a world where you're not going to suffer, so you can have beautiful people on the outside, and they're all degrading on the inside, and when they don't have enough of the programming of their heart muscles and their other vital organs to keep them alive, they take a strong antibiotic when they get diagnosed, even though they're beautiful. Like, you've seen beautiful people get diagnosed with cancer and they look great, but they were told they have cancer, some kind of exponential growth, so they take a strong antibiotic, and instead of suffering with that cancer or that disease and chronic illness, that antibiotic then just completely stops the suffering. But do they die outright from the antibiotic, or does at some point they just die without suffering so long with that disease? Okay, and that's like, but you're saying that they're going to take a pill, Jillian. It's going to immediately take them out of their game, and they're not going to carry that disease and all that. Well, that's the thing, is that maybe here's the thing: once the system can develop something that once people get even a hint of cancer, that the body just goes into shutdown. That's another side of it, where when your body is degrading that much inside and it's developing such fast replicating stuff, that you just have a heart attack and stroke and you don't even get diagnosed with cancer. There'll be no diagnosis. You're just gone. And people be like, oh, well, that's just their time. They won't even know that the person had cancer. Because once you have cancer, then any kind of therapy or remedy that you take has to then be enough for you to live by and live through. Because if not, then people won't take that therapy if they see that people are dying right off the bat. But people are dying now. It's like, if people don't even blink an eye anymore, they just take whatever, and then they just watch their friends just pass away through that whole process, and it's agonizing to watch. So you got to figure out, antibiotic. What's the antibiotic? Is that antibiotic against a protein that's destroying you? So that's a good antibiotic. But see, here's the thing. People don't take antibiotics in the medical holistic system to protect them and encourage longevity where they can live past 100, 200, 300. No, anything that's antibiotic that's taken through the medical holistic system is to stop your body from actually developing protection against the rogue programming that was developed in the medical holistic system. Because your body goes like, oh my God, it's under attack from all those vitamin C antibodies because someone's therapy. That goes into inflammation. The person doesn't want to feel it, and so they take an antibiotic against the body actually trying to protect itself. That's the whole irony of the medical holistic system and the drug industry, is that you're taking antibiotics against your ability to prolong your life, literally. Not the perception from the medical holistic industry, but you're actually taking drugs and antibiotics against your body's ability to evolve. Okay? And so antibiotic, probiotic, something is either going to work against a protein promoting growth, or it's going to encourage development of proteins. The outcome is the intention. The outcome says that the proteins that were allowed to develop were actually working against you. That's the aging process, is all the medical holistic stuff working against you. It's not helping you, it actually is hurting you. And so then, of course, the plus and minus integers that I have to, I'm not going to get too deep into that, but that's just going to be like, hey, when and negative times a negative, all these negatives, and negative could be, proteins that are actually protecting you, and that's your body's immune system developing a protection, a defense against the therapies that are working against your body's ability to assimilate with COVID. So yeah, negative times a negative equals a positive, okay? Then any kind of exponential positive you have to release. Well, positive times positive equals positive. Okay. So you're taking something, so then your body's producing so much positive, promoting growth to encourage cell replication for lengthening your telomeres and extending your life, literally extending your life, bringing you back to youth and vitality, and you're not aging. You are coughing out all the different rogue programming that's out there. And so all the negative and positive is all relative to the intention, relative to how it's being programmed. It is not a face value. Something is positive is like all happy and great, and something is negative is like bad and wrong. No, it's how it's being programmed and what the outcome is. See, people are expecting to die, so they have no idea what positive and negative really is. They don't even know what the fuck that means anymore. It's all allegory to them. It's all Satan and Jesus to them. But when the outcome is death, then you see that all that negative and positive actually is working against you. Positive actually is negative, negative actually is positive, and then it's just like, what the fudge is going on here, right? And so then there's the T cell and B cells. Those are the negatives, right? But they will help you or hurt you relative to how they're programmed. The outcome is the intention. But then there's T cell and B cell regulators. They will help you or hurt you relative to how they're programmed. The outcome is the intention, but they're still positive because they're allowing growth. But here's the thing. They're allowing something to grow or allowing something to do something. See, and that's the thing. When you are a regulator, a T cell, which you're an NK T cell, so you're programmed things to induce autophagy, and that's programmed like a degradation. Okay, that's okay, because then that will help you evolve and take on new information so you can build yourself up again. But when there's a peptocyst, and a peptocyst is also something T cell regulated, I believe. I'll have to check on that. But that's a total programmed cell death. And a peptocyst, when the T cells regulate and they allow a peptocyst to happen, then is that really positive? Well, no, it's negative. But there has to be a way to characterize the T cells and B cells, because they can be negative and positive working for you, or they can be negative, positive working against you. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that positive is good and negative is bad. It's just relative to how it's being programmed. And so if you understood that T cell and B cells are the antibodies, and they can be negative, antibody, then the regulators are then the assumed, implied concept that they are positive, allowing something to happen And it could be allowing something to be destroyed or allow something to grow. And again, it's an allowance versus an actual outright program to self-destruct or degrade or whatever. And so there's, and so again, those two is all relative to intention. And then autophagy, apoptosis. Autophagy is survivability via degradation versus apoptosis, destruction. Okay? And so survivability versus autophagy is better than actual outright destruction, because actual outright destruction is cells committing suicide, people committing suicide and homicide, infanticide, any kind of side. When there is an actual destruction of another person or themselves or destroying somebody else psychologically or physically, then that is a type of apoptosis programming that has been ingrained in a lot of the population because of all the experimentation. All the innovation experimentation has developed so many NK T cells, natural killer T cells, and the programming that tortures people where they can't handle stuff, or they get triggered, or they don't get what they want or what they think they need, and then they get homicidal, suicidal, or whatever. And that's the aggressive programming in the immune system that cannot manage the balance between the programming of the T cells and the B cells and apoptosis versus autophagy. And they're not building up their body, mind, and spirit with food because they have antibodies that are working against the nutrients in their body of the food supply because of all the holistic food used as medicine programming, okay? And so food has been programmed against you from the holistic world using food as medicine remedies, which is why you have allergies, food allergies. So yeah, all the peanut allergies, all the tomato allergies and nightshade allergies, all the different allergies you have brings up mucus because your body thinks that it's an enemy. And so, how do you deal with that? You have to cough out that programming. You have to blow your fucking nose. You have to release the demons out of your alimentary canal, the bottom and the top. Because as you release all of, your body knows that it needs to release that programming. You're taking a food that your body is allergic to. Not only do you have to mucus up and you have to take the food a little bit, right? You have to mucus up and release the programming. Over time, your body will assimilate and take in the resources of that food, and anything excess of that food gets disposed in the waste. But any kind of allergy to a food is a gradual thing for your body to assimilate to. It's not that you are poisoning yourself with that food that you're allergic to. It's that you now have to assimilate to it because your body was programmed against it from the therapies. That's why you see me when you hear me cough and sneeze and blow my nose and all that stuff. Either I have residual allergies against anything in the food supply because of my practices in the holistic allopathic, or I'm taking on somebody else's therapies that are programmed against the food supply because they're doing all the holistic shit that I breathed in, being around them, and now I have to go and release the demons, literally. Okay? And so food should never be discriminated against. Food should always be assimilated to, and the nutrients taken from it. And of course, your body's going to know when to release the excess, nutrients that it doesn't need, or it stores it somewhere so later on it can use it. But any kind of food allergy is the fact that your body was programmed against it, and it has to be a slow transition to assimilate. That's no different than all the viruses out there. When you think of a food allergy, right, that your body's programmed against because of all the tinctures that you used, that's the same thing as being exposed to a new virus like a COVID or COVID SBA 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. Okay? You don't want to program anything against it. You want to take it on and go through the process of releasing and assimilate to it. So that way you build up a defense and you take on the components that could be beneficial to you, and then your body's trained, of course, to release anything that's not beneficial. Okay, so any kind of virus that is like a scare threat, whether it's monkeypox or anything else, yeah, it's an upset of homeostasis, but you don't want to develop any kind of major antibiotic against it. Your body will develop an assimilation point to it. But you have to go through the proper process. Blowing your nose. Don't use any antibiotics out there that will attack any kind of energetic release, because you have to be able to train your body to take on beneficial components and release the non-beneficial components. Okay? And so mucus, that's what mucus is. Mucus is just so much different programming that you can't figure out what this mucus is and what it means. And so you just have to mucus it out because that's the body's way of releasing what it doesn't need. And there's many different types of programming. Those are the viruses. Those are the mitochondrial DNA, the protein data packs that people are so afraid of that they have to, they say, wear a mask against it, wash your hands. Because that's biohazard to some people because they don't have what it takes to assimilate to that strong programming. Some do and some don't. Some don't want to feel that aggressive upset of homeostasis. So they have to wash their hands and use antibacterial soap and all that stuff. But they're just setting themselves up to fail. But you can't tell them that because they don't want to feel pain. They don't want to evolve. They don't want to upgrade. They don't want to take time off. They don't want to assimilate to their environment. And so they're constantly trying to resist the environment, which then makes them even more of a sitting duck, a target. Because anything that is so afraid of something is going to give off real weak vibrations, and then all the different, viruses and protozoa and all that shit is going to find those that are resisting their environment, and they will attack, at the micro level. So symptoms or energy need to be expressed, pressure released. Okay, so you don't want to squelch symptoms. You want to blow your nose, you want to poop, you want to feed it, you want to rest, you want to sleep, and all of that. Okay, so symptoms is the body under so much pressure it has to release. And so that's why you don't try to give medicine against seizures. You feed the seizures. You feed the body with all the elements, electrolytes and proteins and fatty acids, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals. Because those seizures is electrical activity and it needs to be supported. The reason why there's seizures is because there's such anomalies and antibodies that are causing this stuff. And then your body has to find a way to repair it. But when people do is they take medicine to disable their body's functions of actually repairing it so it stays in the body, but it might be under some kind of anesthesia. But then you don't know the next seizure until the body rids itself of all of that rogue programming that's causing all of those energetic releases that are so aggressive. And so any kind of symptoms like Parkinson's, ALS, anything that has to do with the central nervous system, anything that gives off energy, it's something that you can't squelch. If you squelch it, then it'll come back later bigger, stronger, and more destructive. Well, look at Michael J. Fox. He's been dealing with Parkinson's his whole life, and now he is deteriorating. Why is he deteriorating? Because he's taking antibiotics to try to stop the energy from releasing. I mean, we were born with so many predisposed issues because of so much innovation. And then now the petri dish, of course, is exhausted. And so the energy, all of that innovation is now expressing itself, and people are being tortured by it. They are being fucking tortured by it. And it sucks to watch. And so when they try to stop it, or when they do stop it, then it actually works against them in a different way. Okay? And so alimentary canal, you are responsible for each end of your alimentary canal, from your mouth to your anus and all points around it. Your immune system is responsible for everything inside your body in between each end of your alimentary canal. Okay, so that's something that is going to be a process for those of you. Some of you will try to do everything you can to drink the milk and the coffee, really strong espresso to get the poop out, but sometimes that's not even strong enough. And so, don't be afraid of your own orifices, but that's something you will figure out yourself. All right. And so the microbiome, actually the alimentary canal also has blockages. That's why people have issues with pressure, because when you sneeze and you blow your nose, you're supposed to maybe fart if you need to. There has to be a communication between your mouth and your anus to where you're able to go like this and you can push poop out. When you blow your nose really hard, the poop also gets pushed out. And so it's a way of like a tube that has open ends on each end, right? Like a straw. There we go, a straw. And they're supposed to be like this straw that I have. Oh my God, this is perfect. Oops. This straw that I can't get it out. But on each end, there's an opening, right? And so it can work both ways. You can add stuff into my cup, or I can suck stuff out of it. And so that straw is like a way to take in food and release the waste. But let's say that straw has all these different, systems that are attached to it that has to go through processes, and it's a distribution center and a waste center, and then it gets corralled and over here, and then it comes out here, it comes out there. And so that straw then becomes more advanced. Okay, but that straw has to be cleared. There has to be communication between one end and the other. And if there's not, then that's where shit happens. Literally, that's where shit happens. Okay? And so the microbiome, viruses, parasites, protozoa, proteins, fungus, and bacteria, and they're all run by mitochondrial DNA. They are intelligent enough to organize and project an image of electrical impulses, matter, gases, and acids. In biodiversity, they're made up of fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals. Basically, all programmed mitochondrial viral DNA packets of info released from a programmed human with many talents and idiosyncrasies. Okay? And so your microbiome is everything that is found in your environment, and it's organized in your body, and it has a job, and they're communication messenger type of entities that you don't want to attack with any anti-parasitics, any antifungals, any antibacterials, any antivirals. You take anything that's antimicrobial, antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, anti-parasitic, you are attacking you, yourself, and you will destroy yourself over periods of time, because then your body will develop a defense system against it, and those antibodies will then stay stuck in your system, eventually agglutinate, and then convert things that to work against you, not for you. And so you have to be careful with mischaracterizing energy. And so finally, I have everything that I need to explain what the medical holistic system is doing. And this is one choice. And you see the outcome of that. Look at your friends and family. And then there's the Jilly Juice world, where you have to face the pain. You have to deal with all your predisposed issues. You will see how you've been programmed through language and script and all that stuff, and politics, religion, and science. Like I already went through who the Freemasons were and are and everything. And so now it's about you making the choice. And try not to fall down the rabbit holes of fear that that you read on Facebook, because you're like, oh gosh, there's going to be a nuclear attack. There's no guarantee there's going to be a nuclear attack. There's no way to really at all substantiate that. So try not to get stuck in the fear campaigns, and just work on, find a way to change your lifestyle, change your belief system. Find a way to survive all this. Okay? Find a way. All right. I am going to go right now, because now I have even this portion of what viruses are and what they, and I'm not going to get lost in rabbit holes of trying to explain what a CPU is. Yeah, I can make that correlation that your body is a computer, and it has a central processing unit, it has a modem, it has, a monitor and a keyboard and all that. But I that's just like, okay, no duh. I mean, I can make very light comparisons, but to really belabor and try to make direct correlation to bodies and computers, you get it. Okay, you get it. We are programmable. We're no different than Microsoft Word, Microsoft platform. We're no different than any kind of computer, but we just have soft tissue versus a hard drive and software. Okay? And so there's no need to really go too much into that. But I think that I needed to do that a couple years ago, just to give myself a foundation to work from so I can picture it. Okay? And that is all of the training your mind process, understanding how to link all the worlds together so you understand context. That context is fine when you're working in a specific industry, but then the analogies, the metaphors, and the similes are going to make your arguments and the way you explain things better, because you understand how it all works everywhere else, whether it's plumbing in a hospital system or any kind of process-oriented type of industry or work type of flow. You'll understand in a very mechanical way. And then, your arguments get stronger, because then you can paint a picture that people can actually picture. They're like, oh, I'm in the plumbing industry. I can picture all the different ends, end points that go from here to here. And if it's clogged up, then it's going to back up and cause disease. Well, no shit. That's what happens in your body. When you have clogs in your plumbing, you're just going to back up and cause disease. Well, there you go. That's a picture you can paint to a plumber, to also a person who has backed up plumbing. They're full of shit. Literally, they're full of shit. And someone needs to go and plunge that shit. Literally. Okay? So that's why it's important to understand everything in the world, paint pictures, understand this correlation, that context is just a very light barrier between each industry, but they're all run by the same mechanisms, by the same process flow, business process engineering. That's all it is. Okay, bye.